What if the most terrifying monsters in horror movies weren't make-believe? What if the inspiration for Norman Bates, Leatherface, and Buffalo Bill was a real person? A quiet, unassuming man living in a ramshackle farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. A man who didn't just kill, but who sought to erase the line between the living and the dead in the most gruesome way imaginable. If you have a morbid curiosity for the darkest chapters of human history, and you believe that truth is often more terrifying than fiction, then make sure you subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell. You are not prepared for the story we are about to tell. Tonight, we journey to the small, forgotten town of Plainfield, Wisconsin, to uncover the story of a man whose crimes were so depraved, so utterly beyond comprehension, that they created a new category of horror. This is not a story for the faint of heart. It is a story of murder, grave robbing, and a house of horrors filled with furniture made from human skin and bones. This is the story of Ed Gein, the Butcher of Plainfield. November 16th, 1957. In the quiet farming community of Plainfield, Wisconsin, hardware store owner Bernice Worden had vanished. The 58-year-old widow was a fixture in the town, and her disappearance was immediately alarming. The last receipt in her cash register was for a gallon of antifreeze, sold to a local handyman, a shy and awkward man named Ed Gein. When police arrived at Gein's isolated, dilapidated farmhouse on the outskirts of town, they were not prepared for what they were about to find. They were looking for a missing woman. What they discovered was a house of horrors that would forever haunt the American psyche. The first discovery was made in a summer kitchen attached to the main house. There, hanging upside down from the rafters, was the naked, decapitated body of Bernice Worden. She had been shot with a .22 rifle and then gutted like a deer, her torso split open from her neck to her groin. Her head and her heart were found elsewhere in the house, in a burlap sack and a plastic bag, respectively. But this was only the beginning. This was the fresh kill. The true extent of Ed Gein's madness lay within the main house, a place he had turned into his personal charnel house. As investigators moved through the squalid, garbage-filled rooms, they were confronted with a scene of unimaginable depravity. Every object, every piece of furniture seemed to be crafted from the remains of the dead. There were bowls, carefully fashioned from the tops of human skulls. There were chairs, upholstered not with fabric, but with human skin. The bedposts were adorned with more skulls. A lampshade was made from the skin of a human face. A belt was found, meticulously crafted from a string of human nipples. A pair of lips was used as the pull for a window shade. The discoveries grew more and more grotesque. In a shoebox, police found 9 preserved vulvas. They found a corset made from a female torso skinned from the shoulders to the waist. They found leggings made from the skin of human legs. And most terrifyingly, they found masks. Masks made from the real, preserved faces of dead women, which Gein would wear around the house. He had not just killed. He had been trying to become his victims. He was building a woman suit, a complete outfit of human skin, so that he could, in his own twisted mind, become his deceased, domineering mother. To understand the madness of Ed Gein, you have to understand his mother, Augusta. She was a fanatically religious woman who ruled her 2 sons, Henry and Ed, with an iron fist. She isolated them on their remote farm, preaching to them daily about the evils of the world, the sin of lust, and the inherent wickedness of all women, except, of course, for herself. Ed's father was a violent alcoholic who beat him mercilessly. His only source of comfort, his only love, was his mother. He became utterly obsessed with her. Death seemed to follow the Gein family. Ed's father died in 1940. Then, in 1944, his brother Henry died under mysterious circumstances during a brush fire. Henry had been openly critical of their mother's suffocating influence, and many believe Ed killed him in a fit of rage, a theory supported by the fact that Henry had bruises on his head when his body was found. Finally, in 1945, Augusta herself died after a series of strokes, leaving Ed completely alone in the world. He was devastated. He had lost his only friend, his one true love, and with her gone, the last barrier to his descent into madness was removed. After his mother's death, Gein sealed off her rooms, leaving them as a pristine shrine. The rest of the house fell into filth and decay. He began to read pulp magazines and books about Nazi atrocities, becoming particularly fascinated with Ilse Koch, the bitch of Buchenwald, who was rumored to have made lampshades and other items from the skin of concentration camp prisoners. And then, he started to dig. Gein began his ghoulish new hobby by robbing graves. He would read the local obituaries, and under the cover of darkness, he would drive to the Plainfield cemetery and exhume the bodies of recently deceased, middle-aged women who he thought resembled his mother. He would take the bodies back to his farmhouse and dissect them, keeping the parts he found most interesting. He later confessed to at least 9 separate grave robberies, though the true number is likely much higher. He denied ever having sexual relations with the corpses, telling investigators, "They smelled too bad." His goal was not sexual. It was transformational. He wanted to resurrect his mother, and he believed the only way to do that was to crawl inside the skin of other women. For years, Gein's activities went unnoticed. He was a quiet, odd, but seemingly harmless handyman. He even babysat for local families, but his ghoulish collection grew. His desire for fresh materials escalated. Grave robbing was no longer enough. In 1954, he murdered Mary Hogan, a local tavern owner. He shot her in the head and took her body back to his farm. Her face became one of his masks. Her skull was found in a box. 3 years later, he murdered Bernice Worden, the act that would finally lead to his downfall and the discovery of his house of horrors. When the full, gruesome details of Gein's crimes were revealed, the world was horrified. The story of the Butcher of Plainfield became a media sensation. The quiet, unassuming farmer was transformed into a real-life monster, a ghoul who blurred the line between the living and the dead. His house of horrors was scheduled to be auctioned off, with rumors that it would become a tourist attraction. But before that could happen, it burned to the ground in a mysterious fire, likely set by angry locals who wanted to erase the stain of his crimes from their town. Gein, when he heard the news, simply shrugged and said, "Just as well." Gein was found not guilty by reason of insanity. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia and spent the rest of his life in a mental institution where he was reportedly a model patient, polite and gentle. He died of cancer in 1984 at the age of 77, but his legacy of horror would live on. His crimes were so shocking, so uniquely depraved, that they became the inspiration for some of the most iconic horror villains in cinematic history. The story of a boy, so pathologically devoted to his dead mother that he begins to kill in her name, became the basis for Norman Bates in Robert Bloch's novel and Alfred Hitchcock's film, Psycho. The idea of a killer who wears the skin of his victims, who creates a mask from human flesh, directly inspired Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And the concept of a murderer who skins his female victims to create a woman's suit was borrowed for the character of Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. Ed Gein was not a fictional character. He was a real man whose twisted love for his mother and obsession with the female form led him to commit acts of almost unimaginable depravity. He was a product of isolation, abuse, and a warped, fanatical upbringing. His story serves as a chilling reminder that the most terrifying monsters are not those that lurk in the shadows of our imagination, but those that walk among us, hidden behind a mask of quiet normalcy. What do you think creates a monster like Ed Gein? Is it nature or nurture? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have the stomach for more true tales of horror, be sure to like, share, and subscribe.